There are men in professional sports who never appear in the highlight reels. They do not take at-bats. They do not throw pitches. They do not stand in the spotlight that the cameras find automatically, the way cameras always find the men whose names appear on the backs of jerseys and the fronts of trading cards and the top of sports broadcasts on Tuesday nights across America. They stand somewhere else entirely. Somewhere quieter. Somewhere that requires a different kind of attention to find, the kind of attention that most people never bother to develop because the spotlight is so much easier to follow. Osamu Yada has spent his entire professional life in that quieter place. He is not famous. He is not the kind of name that appears in headlines or generates the particular electricity that surrounds the players whose careers he has quietly, methodically, invisibly shaped. He is a trainer, which is a word that contains almost none of the reality of what he actually does, the way the word architect contains almost none of the reality of what it means to design a building that will outlast everyone who ever worked on it. What Yada actually does is build careers. From the inside out. From the daily invisible work that most athletes never fully understand until something happens, a moment, a game, a swing, that makes the invisible work suddenly, undeniably visible. Mookie Betts hit a go-ahead 3-run homer. The stadium erupted in the way that stadiums erupt when the moment is real and large and completely impossible to contain. The cameras found Betts immediately, the way they always find the man who just changed the game. His teammates poured out of the dugout. The noise became physical. And somewhere in that building, in a space the cameras did not find, Osamu Yada, a man who does not cry easily, who has spent decades in professional sports developing the particular emotional fortitude that the work requires, began to cry. And then Shohei Ohtani, in an interview with American media that nobody expected to produce what it produced, revealed what Yada said in that moment. The words were not what anyone anticipated. And they explained, more completely than any statistic or highlight reel ever could, exactly what this story was actually about. To understand why Osamu Yada cried, you have to understand who Osamu Yada is. Not the professional biography, though that tells part of the story. The decades of work in Japanese sports science. The methodology he developed across years of careful observation and rigorous application. The philosophy that eventually crossed an ocean inside the preparation habits of the most remarkable baseball player alive and quietly began transforming one of the most famous sports organizations in the world. That part of the story is real and important. But it is not the part that produces tears. The part that produces tears is the relationship. Those who know Yada describe someone who approaches his work with a quality of investment that goes far beyond professional obligation. He does not simply design training protocols and recovery systems and nutritional frameworks. He enters into the lives of the athletes he works with in a way that makes their success feel, genuinely, not performatively, like his own. When a player he has worked with struggles, Yada carries it. When a player he has prepared makes a mechanical error that his training was designed to prevent, Yada examines his own methodology before he examines the player. When something goes wrong, his first question is always the same. Not what did the athlete do incorrectly, but what did I miss in the preparation? This is not common. In professional sports, where the distance between support staff and athletes is maintained carefully and deliberately, this level of personal investment is almost professionally unusual. Yada has never seemed to care about the professional convention. He cares about the work. And the work, for him, has always been inseparable from the people doing it. The interview was not designed to produce a revelation. American media had requested time with Ohtani to discuss, broadly, the cultural changes he had brought to the Dodgers environment, the growing influence of Japanese training philosophy on a roster full of players whose entire athletic formation had happened within the American sports system. It was a good story. An interesting story. The kind of story that generates thoughtful features and podcast discussions and the particular kind of sports media attention that sits slightly above the daily game coverage. Ohtani engaged with it the way he engages with most things, thoughtfully, specifically, without the performance of either false modesty or inflated self-importance. He talked about the Yada method in the precise terms of someone who has lived it rather than someone who is explaining it from the outside. He talked about what it had produced in Betts with the particular warmth of a teammate who had watched a transformation happen in real time and found genuine satisfaction in it. And then the interviewer asked a question that was meant to be transitional. A bridge question. The kind of question designed to move the conversation from one topic to the next without losing momentum. He described Yada's reaction. He described the words. And the American journalists in the room, who had come prepared for an interesting conversation about cultural exchange in professional baseball, found themselves sitting in something that felt unexpectedly larger than that. Before the words can be understood, the homer itself needs context. This was not a routine extra base hit in a mid-season game whose outcome would be absorbed into the long mathematics of a 162-game schedule and largely forgotten by the following week. The context surrounding this at-bat had been building for months, in Betts' gradual physical transformation under the Yada method's influence, in the accumulated skepticism of analysts who had questioned whether the approach would translate into the statistical reality that ultimately matters in professional baseball, in the quiet pressure that surrounded both Betts and the philosophy he had embraced so publicly and so completely. There is a particular kind of pressure that comes from telling the truth about what changed you. From saying, in front of the full attention of American sports media, that a Japanese training method had altered the fundamental quality of your physical life. From staking your credibility, and, implicitly, the credibility of the person whose method you had adopted, on the outcome of a season that had not yet finished proving you right. Betts had done all of that. He had been honest in a way that most athletes avoid being honest, because honesty of that specific kind creates accountability that extends beyond yourself. If the method worked, the story was complete. If it did not produce visible results at the moments that mattered most, and in baseball, the moments that matter most are the ones in late games, under maximum pressure, when the body's accumulated fatigue is most likely to express itself as failure, then the honesty would become a different kind of story entirely. The go-ahead 3-run homer in that game was Betts' body delivering the answer. Not to the skeptics, though it answered them too, but to a deeper question about whether the months of invisible daily investment had built exactly what the Yada method promised it would build. It had. And Osamu Yada, watching from that quiet place where he always watches, understood what he was seeing in a way that nobody else in the building fully could. What Yada said, in the moment immediately after Betts' homer, was not about baseball. This is the part that stopped the journalists. This is the part that Ohtani delivered quietly, in the specific way he delivers things that matter to him, without theatrical emphasis, without the narrative build that a less honest person might use to maximize the emotional impact of a reveal. He simply said what Yada said. And let it be what it was. Yada did not say anything about the homer. He did not say anything about Betts' swing mechanics or the pitch selection or the situational perfection of the hit or any of the baseball language that surrounds moments like that one. He said something about the journey. He said, and here Ohtani's voice carried a quality that the journalists in the room would later describe as the most quietly emotional they had ever heard from him, that he had never been certain. That across all the months of preparation, across all the sessions and the protocols and the daily invisible work, there had always been a part of him that carried a private uncertainty about whether what he was building inside Betts' body would be there when Betts needed it most. Not doubt in the method. Yada has complete faith in the method. But the particular uncertainty that comes from caring so deeply about an outcome that the gap between the investment and the result becomes, for a time, almost unbearable. He had been carrying that uncertainty quietly for months. And when the ball left Betts' bat and the trajectory was unmistakable and the result was already written before it landed, in that specific instant, the uncertainty dissolved. And what replaced it was not triumph. Not professional satisfaction. Not the vindication that the skeptics might have expected from a man whose methodology had just been validated at the highest possible level. What replaced it was relief. And gratitude. And something that Yada apparently described, in the words Ohtani carefully repeated to the American journalists, as the feeling of having been trusted with something precious and not having broken it. Betts had trusted him with his career. With his body. With the most intimate and vulnerable kind of faith that one person can extend toward another, the faith that says I will change how I live based on what you tell me, and I am trusting you to be right. Yada had felt the weight of that trust every single day. And when Betts delivered the homer, when the trust was proven not to have been misplaced, what Yada felt was not pride in himself. It was gratitude toward Betts. For trusting him. For doing the work. For being the kind of athlete who, once he commits completely, without reservation, without the halfway investment that produces halfway results. He was grateful to the player. That was what brought the legend to tears. The journalists in the room heard the same words Ohtani spoke. But Ohtani understood them differently. Because Ohtani knew Yada in a way that no journalist present could know him, from years of shared work, from the particular intimacy of a relationship built in training rooms and recovery sessions and the quiet spaces where the real preparation happens. He knew what it cost Yada to carry that uncertainty. He knew how deeply the investment ran, not just the professional investment of a trainer committed to his methodology, but the personal investment of a man who had let himself care about an outcome in the way that makes outcomes genuinely matter. And he knew, because he had experienced something adjacent to it himself, what the dissolution of that kind of carried uncertainty feels like when it finally arrives. He had watched Yada cry. And he had understood, without needing it explained, exactly why. What Ohtani told the American journalists was not simply a touching anecdote about a trainer's emotional response to a player's success. It was a window into a philosophy of human connection that runs beneath the surface of the Yada method and gives it the power that no training protocol possesses on its own. The method works not because the science is sound, though the science is sound. It works because of the relationship in which it is transmitted. Because Yada brings to the work a quality of genuine care that the athletes he works with can feel, and that quality of care changes what they are willing to invest in return. Betts did not transform because the protocols were excellent. He transformed because he trusted the man behind them completely. And he trusted the man behind them because the man behind them had made it unmistakably clear, through months of daily presence and patient consistency, that the investment was mutual. This is what Ohtani understood. And this is what he tried, carefully and with his characteristic honesty, to give the American journalists access to. American sports culture celebrates systems. Methods. Protocols. The quantifiable, the measurable, the things that can be expressed in data and replicated at scale and packaged into the kind of explainer content that travels efficiently across the modern media landscape. The Yada method fits comfortably inside that celebration. It has structure. It has science. It has the visible, undeniable proof of Mookie Betts standing in a major league stadium in September, fresher and more capable than anyone outside a small circle had expected, delivering a go-ahead 3-run homer that changed a game. But what Ohtani revealed in that interview was the part that the system and method narrative leaves out. The part that cannot be quantified or replicated at scale or packaged for efficient distribution. The part where a man cries because a player trusted him. America is interested in the Yada method. The training philosophy, the recovery protocols, the nutritional science that Japanese sports culture has been developing quietly while American athletics was focused elsewhere. These are interesting. They are valuable. They deserve the attention they are beginning to receive. But what Osamu Yada said in the moment after Betts' homer, what Ohtani chose to share because he understood its importance, points towards something that the method alone cannot teach. That the highest level of human performance is not produced by protocols. It is produced by trust. By the specific, fragile, irreplaceable faith that one person extends toward another when they decide, against all the reasonable caution that experience accumulates, to be completely honest about their vulnerability. Betts trusted Yada with his career. Yada carried that trust like something precious and breakable. And when the moment arrived, when the ball left the bat and the trust was proved not to have been misplaced, what the legend felt was not victory. It was gratitude. Osamu Yada did not expect to cry. He has watched athletes succeed for decades. He has seen careers built from the ground up through the application of everything he has spent his professional life learning and refining and teaching. He has seen the method work before, in other bodies, in other stadiums, in other seasons that ended well. But he has never stopped feeling it. That is the thing about him that Ohtani tried to explain to the journalists and that the journalists tried to explain to their readers, and that travels, imperfectly but unmistakably, through every layer of retelling until it arrives here. He has never learned to feel it less. The tears were not weakness. They were the evidence of a man who has refused, across a lifetime of professional sports experience, to develop the protective distance that would make his work more comfortable and less meaningful simultaneously. He cares too much to stop caring. And caring that much, bringing that quality of genuine investment to the work every single day, carrying the uncertainty, feeling the weight of the trust that athletes place in him, is exactly what makes the work worth doing and the method worth following. Shohei Ohtani revealed those words in an interview that was supposed to be about cultural exchange in professional baseball. What he actually revealed was something about the nature of excellence itself. About what it requires from the people who build it and the people who transmit it and the people who carry it forward into the moments that matter most. It requires more than science. More than methodology. More than the excellent, rigorous, carefully developed protocols that the Yada method contains. It requires a man willing to stand in a quiet place, far from the spotlight, carrying the weight of someone else's trust, and feeling, when that trust is honored, not pride in himself but gratitude toward the person who believed in him enough to try. That is what brought the legend to tears. And that, Ohtani told America, is what the Dodgers have found that the scoreboard cannot measure.